What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's just do a mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. DMs wide open. You guys know the drill. Fire in and get your questions answered here on this little old podcast. We will start with Levi. Question for the mailbag. How does the trade deadline actually work? Do the phones in each building magically turn off at 4 p.m. Eastern? Is there some sort of documentation that needs to be submitted to the league by 4 Eastern, or you're out of luck? Seems like a Fugazi process. When I was in the NFL, I would say I remember the landlines, at least when I first got there in Philly in 2010, having a lot of pull. I remember Katie, who was Howie's assistant, used to be, and I basically sat right next to her, and then Howie was in like a big office that overlooked our practice facility. She'd be like, Adam Schefter on line one. And that feels like, I mean, that's 15 years ago now. That feels like a lifetime ago. There is none of these GMs that are doing any deals that aren't communicating by cell phone. So all their communication, and you see this on all the draft videos, it's mainly by cell phone, texting, then calling. But you do, like the thing that's not a Fugazi, it's not about how you figure out the trade between the Jets and the Colts. Chris Ballard and, I forget the GM of the Jets name, and Glenn and his guy and Woody. It's about the league knowing, and you have to get it to them. It's like the draft, right? You get 15 minutes, you're on the clock in the first round. You get 7 or 10 minutes or whatever the second round is. You just have to have, hey, Ty Simpson by the time it hits 00, or the next guy can pick. The difference of the deadline is it just ends. Given how good Flacco has played recently for Cleveland and Cincinnati, was he being held back when he was in Baltimore? Would we be talking about him like an elite quarterback if he had played with a more offensively friendly team? Love the show. How do you know if the questions get answered as if I can't watch or listen to the shows every day? I guess you'll never know. You hope you're listening on the day that your question gets answered. This isn't the most buttoned up process. It's not like an automatic email goes out, which maybe we're not that far away with AI. If I read your question, you get an automatic DM or email say, listen to episode whatever, this date, your question is answered. We're probably not very far away. But I would say when it comes to your question about Flacco, an elite quarterback, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think it's pretty clear that his strengths weren't always utilized with a team that focused on defense and running the ball. Now, granted, if I remember correctly, Torrey Smith, Anquan Bolden, was Todd Heap, but they were just so defensive oriented that, yeah, I mean, I think from a deep ball standpoint, if he would have played with better wide receivers over the course of his career, it probably would have looked a little different. I mean, like Torrey Smith was one of his go-to guys from 11, 12, 13, and 14. Catching 50, 49, 65, 49 balls. Like that, and that's a guy that, where'd they draft Torrey Smith? They drafted him at the end of the second round. So there was a lot of that. Steve Smith Sr., is an older player. I definitely think if Flacco at 28 years old was on a team with some star wide receivers, it probably would have been a more explosive experience for sure. Post-trade deadline, how much pressure now relies on getting the Jets head coach correct, given the massive draft capital over the next 2 years? How much pressure is now on Aaron Glenn this year alone? I talked about this earlier, that this is why these things can crack. Because it was like, trust the process. Sam Hinkie, Brett Brown, until it wasn't. Right? So by the time we get to the 2027 draft, which I think on paper right now the Jets have 3 1s and 2 2s. Could be wrong on that. They definitely have 5 1s, right, over the course of 2 years. Is the coach who is judged on wins and losses going to be able to survive several years of not winning when the franchise has already been not winning for a long time? That's the problem. Like, they have been really bad now for a long period of time. So clearly the GM is like, this is personnel people have wet dreams to have this type draft capital. Coaches do not, because it's like, well, by 2028, some of these players could be popping. It's like, well, what if they're not? What if you miss on some players? I saw with the Raiders when they traded Khalil Mack. All of a sudden, they're drafting guys that are out of the league. So it can. I never fault a bad team for making one of these trades, but also now the pressure. Like, Sauce Gardner was a 2-time All-Pro. Quinn Williams has been a guy that's been to several Pro Bowls. You're literally just going to try to draft those type guys again. Right? They didn't trade Garrett Wilson, but you're just going to try to draft another Garrett Wilson. If Aaron Glenn can survive this, he's not only mentally tough, they like him a lot as a guy. I think it's really, really hard in football to just overcome negative perception that's already surrounding the franchise that he has nothing to do with, and then just several years of losing, even if there is, in theory, light at the end of the tunnel. But we've seen them with a lot of really good players and no quarterback, and nothing matters. So the only thing that matters with the Jets, because like they can have Pro Bowl guys at different positions. If your quarterback position sucks, you have no chance. Like with the Jets, like would struggle beating Ohio State if you're not going to complete passes. Their team's going to be really bad now, right? I mean, you've traded away multiple corners. You traded away your star defensive lineman. You're just going to have players checking out. You're human beings, right? I'm a big believer, and I give a lot of guys credit for being a high-level pro. I was on a walk this morning, and I heard Colin say, like, how much he respects Jacoby Brissett. Listen, I try to surround myself, just like probably most of you, with a lot of guys that are high-level guys that are focused. I do like my wild cards every once in a while. And we're human beings, and we can gravitate toward, certain things. And I don't care who you are. When something really sucks and it is not fun, and in sports when you're losing all the time, even if you're a high character guy, it's easy to kind of check out. So I'm not saying these guys are just going to all out quit, but it is going to be the pressure on Aaron Glenn to just keep players trying is going to be a lot harder than you would expect in the National Football League. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook now has new promos every single day. We talk a lot of football on 3 and Out, but there's always something to bet. We got the World Series, baby. Week 8 kicks off later this week as well. But if you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. If you're already betting on the Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app, you know what that means. Wednesdays are the last day to use your legendary rewards drops. Open up the app today. You could have a bonus bet, or who knows what's in there. More drops every Thursday. The rewards and promos are nonstop, baby. Feeling like Arizona is ready to move on from Kyler, any chance he bounces back with some other organization? I'll piggyback because the next question is, in the same lane too. Huge fan of the pod. I listen to as much as I can. My question is, Nick Wright said last offseason that Kyler Murray would be the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback week 1 in 2026. With the way Brissett is playing, it wouldn't shock me if Arizona got rid of him. Well, I think today he's officially been benched, right? Which the man on the moon could see coming. Like, they weren't going to go to Kyler Murray when Jacoby's been playing like this. He's dramatically just a better player. And their most prized possession over the last couple of years is Marvin Harrison. And Marvin Harrison is alive when Jacoby plays. He doesn't exist when Kyler plays. Like, that impacts it regardless. I just don't think he has any trade value. I really don't. One, you would much rather have, I think they will try to get Aaron Rodgers to come back and play another year. And I think there's a decent chance that happens. But you would rather have Aaron Rodgers at 42 years old than this version of Kyler Murray. I don't know if Kyler Murray's really rehabable. My take on Kyler kind of is what he is. He's a 5'9" guy who can't see, who is inconsistent because he can't see, who can run around and make good plays. But also, when you run around a lot, sometimes shit hits the fan. It doesn't go your way. It's why the Cardinals, like, if you watch them on the right day, they can look really good. If you watch them on the wrong day, they can look atrocious. One thing that isn't debatable with Arizona is, like, they got a lot of good players. Their defensive line is real, especially with the first rounder back. Trey McBride is one of the best players in the NFL on offense. Let me repeat that. He is one of the best players. Quarterbacks, linemen, receivers, tight ends. That's how good that guy is. And listen, I'm just a product of what I see. Though that's where my takes come from. So I was like, I don't know if I really see it with Marvin Harrison. Now you watch him and go, God, Marvin, I don't know if he's going to be some superstar or his father, but he can be a really, really good player. And you're starting to see that now. I said this, the reason it's like they got to cut DeMarcado after he dropped the ball. Well, the reason they didn't cut him, guys, was because one, their starting running back, what James Conner do? Shatter his ankle? Like, they have lost running backs. I kind of like DeMarcado. So now you get Jacoby with some just real weapons, a running game that has been semi-effective, and a defense is pretty good. Like Nick Rawlis, I actually flew back from the combine a couple years ago, and he was on my plane with another coach. I was sitting in the back of the bird. He was in first class. So you got to give Bidwell a little credit for taking care of his coordinators. But I remember looking at him. I didn't know that much about him. I knew he was coming. He was a position coach for Philly. And I remember I was probably 37 at the time, thinking, God, this guy looks really, really young. I think he's good. I mean, I think him and Jonathan Gannon, I think the Cardinals have been a pretty well-coached team. It's just Kyler Murray, you see it in college and the pros all the time. You can have a solid team. If your quarterback situation is in flux, I'm not even talking a disaster. It's just up and down. It's hard to function. Okay, we got a doozy coming here. This is from, this is a little out of left field. Why isn't Bo Nix being talked about more in the MVP discussion? Drake Maye has been vaulted into being a favorite, yet Maye and Nix have similar numbers on the season. You have admitted that Maye has done so with an absolute joke of a schedule. Well, I haven't admitted that. The stats you literally say it. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL. If we go into nerd mode and take all of the negative quarterback stats, INT, fumbles, sacks, etc., and subtract those from the positive stats, yards, TDs, rushing, total yards, only Dak Prescott, Herbert, and Mahomes have had better seasons than Bo Nix. Add in the clutch gene, leadership, and being his best when his best is asked, and it would seem that the national media moves the goalpost when it comes to Bo Nix. I just, really quick on Kyler, his cap hits the next couple years, $53 million, $43 million. You'd have to pay him in cash next year, 42 and 36. Feels a little extreme. Let me just bring up Bo Nix here really quick, because I would imagine his stats, when you just look at them, don't look atrocious. His team's obviously 7-2. He's thrown 17 touchdowns and has 6 interceptions. My guess also is he has a couple rushing touchdowns, right? So he has 3 rushing touchdowns. So he has accounted for 20 touchdowns, 6 picks, and 1 lost fumble. So 20 touchdowns and 7 turnovers. Which is not terrible by any means. Nowhere near the MVP. I would say here's the problem for Bo. The eye test has been atrocious. He has had games where he's borderline unplayable for quarters on end. And you're talking to a guy that has the ticket on Denver to win the division, on a ticket on them to make the Super Bowl. I'd be lying if I said I have a lot of confidence. Because, yes, he has had some of that Tebow magic in the fourth quarter, throwing touchdowns. But you can't win the MVP when you play like shit throughout a lot of games. I wouldn't vote for Drake Maye as the MVP. He's not getting many votes, I don't think. But like comparing him to the Baker Mayfields, the Matt Staffords, the Sam Darnolds, the Mahomes, Josh Allen's, like they just play well throughout the game, right? So Bo Nix, a lot of his good games, it's been like the fourth quarter against the Eagles, big play against the Texans. Like you got to do that throughout the game. So to me, it's not even a discussion. I don't think you could watch Bo Nix play through the first 2 months of the season and say with a straight face he's an MVP candidate, regardless about Drake May. If you're as competitive as I am, you're always looking for something to help you stay dialed in. And for me, that thing is Zone nicotine pouches. You won't catch me without one. A can. I'm actually out. I need to go tomorrow to the Chevron right down right down the street. And my go-to is usually dragon fruit or citrus, especially when I'm playing golf. Not to mention 20 pouches per can versus 15 that the other guys offer. So choose Zone and dominate the day. Use the promo code 3and out20 on NicoKick.com for 20% off at checkout. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Underage sale prohibited. Big Giants fan here. This is from Russell, not Wilson. If they clean house, are the Giants an attractive team for the best available head coach / GM? Seems like Dayball isn't good enough to overcome bad draft picks, and the lame duck coach after firing the GM never works. I just think we have to ask ourselves, who are the top candidates? So regardless, if this is not a defense or a criticism of what they should do with Dable, like fire him, he sucks, or keep him. Let's just say it's open. The Giants have an open GM and an open head coach. Well, who are the top available candidates? Young Joe Brady, the Giants can't afford to do that. Same thing with Kubiak, can't afford to do that. I can't have a first-time head coach. We have done this a couple times in a row now in Daboll and Joe Judge, and it's blown up in our face. I think we've tried the retread, the Pat Shurmur, that sucked. We tried like the up-and-coming star, McAdoo, who was already in our building, that sucked. I think if anything, what they need to do, and they struck, it turned out to be gold because they won 2 Super Bowls with the guy, is a proven hard-ass kind of retread. When I say retread, a guy who's already been a head coach and had some success in Tom Coughlin. So who is that version of a guy? Does Mike McCarthy make sense? Doesn't quite feel regal enough for New York. On the text thread we're on here for 3 and out, Lane Kiffin's name got thrown out there because of his connection with Jackson Dart. While Lane has done a huge rehab, literally, right? Completely sobered up, looks fantastic. Family's a huge part of his life. Looks like God's a big part of his life. A lot of question marks a couple years before that. And, it was the reason he wasn't getting any other interviews. I'm talking college, not the pros. I have a hard time seeing the Giants brass look past that. At least there's a lot of risk involved. And short-lived stint with the Raiders, probably not happening. Sark, if he truly is interested and they got a quarterback, would he be interested? But who are these guys' GMs going to be? Do you hire a GM first and let them hire a coach? How about the Arthur Smith, Matt Nagy type guys? I think you would have to take them into consideration. Guys, Atlanta and in Chicago, right? But there's not, a Ben Johnson level guy, a no-brainer, and there's not a Mike Vrabel on this market. So I think it makes it really difficult. Could you shoot for the stars and go with the young, up-and-coming Joe Brady Kubiak? You could, but I think New York's a tough spot for that, man. I think it can eat you alive and spit you out. So I think in a perfect world, you'd hire like Mike Vrabel, like that human. That's where I think, what you'd be rooting for? Is like John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin to get a divorce. Because if one of those guys get a divorce, they are 100% your hire. You're not looking to win the Super Bowl. You're just looking to get the train back on the tracks. And that's all the Giants are looking to do. Make forward progress. No pun intended. Just get going in the right direction. See, everyone's standard's a little different, right? If the Packers get bounced in round 1 and LaFleur gets fired, they're looking to take the next step. They're looking for a guy who can get them over the hump, right? He's already proven like he can get them to 10, 12, 13 wins. He can get, if you give him a star quarterback, they can win an MVP. You give him an unknown in Jordan Love, he can play well. but just something's a little off. So they'd be looking to take that next step. I don't know who that exactly is. The Giants, the bar is so low. You're just looking to get it going, uh, like Tomlin or John Harbaugh could get you going. I think Mike Tomlin makes a lot of sense there if the Pittsburgh thing ends ugly, which is always a chance that happens based on recent history. A lot of questions about Kyler Murray. I have a hard time seeing them trade him when he's making 40, $35 million. I just what team would pay Kyler Murray next year $40 million? If Kyler Murray was a free agent at the end of this year, does he get a multi-year deal? I doubt it. And if you do give him a multi-year deal, you're usually a bad team. I mean, honestly, for the Jets are going to get a lot of credit today because they got a bunch of draft picks. They also this offseason gave 2 years and $40 million to Justin Fields. And I'm not pocket watching. I'm all for anyone getting as much money as they can. Good on his agent for negotiating that contract. But in what world would a good GM have given Justin Fields $30 million guaranteed? So how do we trust that these guys know what they're doing? That's where it gets scary. Do you think Maye and Vrabel have a decent shot at a Super Bowl if they stay together the next 5 to 10 years? Also, who would you say Maye's best comp is? I've heard people compare him to Big Ben, but I don't see it. I think he's more like a Herbert, Josh Allen hybrid. Big Ben, I would say Big Ben and Cam Newton, like those two guys don't have comps. I remember one time going to a game at Candlestick, probably would have been like 2013, and the 49ers were playing the Panthers, and the Panthers beat them. And this is when the Niners, like Harbaugh, was in the peak of his powers, and they were good. I remember just going to Cam Newton's press conference because I just wanted to see what he looked like close, just thinking, this guy's fucking huge. I remember thinking the same thing for Big Ben, seeing him play the Raiders a couple times and seeing him run out the tunnel. He was just a massive human being. So to me, Drake Maye is not as physical as those type guys. I do think the Herbert, basing his personality, pretty low key guy, good looking, kind of easygoing. Herbert's West Coast personality. Maye is from the Carolinas, but feels like he's a pretty easygoing guy. He's basically 6'4.5", 230 pounds. Josh Allen feels like a kind of twitchier, more explosive athlete than Maye. I think Herbert's a relatively fair comp. I think Drake Maye looks like what people hoped Trevor Lawrence was going to look like. Sauce for two first rounders seems to be a lot. Do you think two first rounders would have gotten one of the league's consistently elite corners, such as Patrick Surtain? Well, he wouldn't have been available. So it's like, unless you're willing to give me, I don't want to trade him. He's the best player on my team. I don't know much about him personally, but I just, based on the way he plays and the way the team extend him, I would imagine their leader, team captain, just like your dude. Well, we don't trade our dudes when we're good. Now, this is a business. If you offer me 4 1s and 3 2s, like it gets to a point where you could get to a number where I have to say yes. But the trade that Indy made with the Jets, not only the Broncos immediately hang up, but like they're just not in the business of trading that guy. And Patrick Surtain is a much better player than Sauce Gardner. Honestly, I mean, I don't even think it's close. I think the scary thing for Sauce is how different the last year and a half has been from the first 2 years. And I think it's scary to give that much up for a guy that's very expensive, who carries himself like an elite, but he's playing like a mid. I'm all for trading for elite guy. Like Micah Parsons carries himself like a shit don't stink. Well, here's what I know about Micah Parsons. He's going to get me 15 sacks. And he's going to pressure the quarterback a lot in big time spots. Even if, you'd like a little more in certain spots as an all around player, given I'm giving him $200 million. Like I would like Myles Garrett over him, but like I can handle having Mike. Mike is an elite. I just don't view Sauce as an elite. Pastor Tan's an elite. Uh, Stingley is one of the elites. And I think a huge part about playing corner is it's hard to be a dominant player at that position and not be an exceptional athlete. Like, think about this. The greatest corner in my lifetime, who's really struggling right now as a coach, but is considered pound for pound one of the greatest athletes in the history of this great nation, Deion Sanders. I would say one of the best corners of the internet era is Darrelle Revis, who is also considered, for the prime of his career, one of the best athletes in the league. Richard Sherman was a wide receiver, transitioned to defensive back. He's a, I mean, he tackles like, or he, when he played, like he was a linebacker. So it's like he's not going to be as fluid as Prime and Revis. But what he makes up for, because Deion was such a good athlete, it's like, they don't pay me to tackle. And he's right, because he's breaking up balls. But in this league, like especially with how spread out it is, people are going to come at you. So like Richard Sherman's 6'3", 200 pounds. And he runs a 4.53. You know, I think Sauce, I think most people would consider Sauce Gardner like a 4.55 guy. You know, and Patrick Surtain is just a much better athlete. Like, what did Sauce run at the combine? I think he might have run in the 4.4s. He ran 4.41. He doesn't play like that anymore, though. What did Patrick Surtain? I want the son. It's crazy. I mean, they got pretty good genes in that family. You got dad and son. He ran a 4.41 too. But this is where you got to be careful. Who plays faster? People are like, Middlekauff, you're just a hater. Just a hater on Sauce. I got nothing against it. I actually kind of like him. He's a big golfer. I like the guy. If you'd have said, hey, traded one first round pick for a 1 and a 4, and even a player, I'd be like, oh, a little overpaid, but I get it. 2 1s? 2 1s is like for Khalil Mack and Jalen Ramsey. I've seen someone trade 2 1s, and it's probably one of their biggest regrets for Jamal Adams, and it backfired. Felt like they regretted that trade immediately. When you trade for a guy who is a defensive back, safety, or corner, that guy better be able to dominate in coverage, because you're going to play teams who are going to come after that guy relentlessly if you can. And that happened to Jamal Adams. And I get it. It's not, he's a safety. This guy's a corner. But I don't know. Can I tell you about my friends at IndaCloud? I've been a loyal gummy user now for several months. And they sent me some sleep gummies. I love those. But the ones that really hit are these peach soda. They got 20 milligrams per piece. And sometimes I just take half a little gummy. And it opens up my mind, helps me relax. And to be completely transparent, I've come up with some of my best takes sitting on the couch on one of these gummies. So whether you're trying to go to sleep, whether you're trying to relax and chill, or whether you're trying to open up your mind, if you're 21 or over, head to IndaCloud.co and use the code 3ANDOUT for 40% off your first order plus free shipping. It's IndaCloud's biggest sale of the year, and it's live all month long. No 12-hour panic buys here. That's IndaCloud.co, code the number 3 and out for 40% off free shipping, and the only Black Friday upgrade that comes with the actual belly laughs and not lines, baby. As a Bears fan, I remember hearing during the offseason that Aaron Glenn was a culture guy and Ben Johnson was a nerdy coordinator who couldn't lead a locker room. Would you say at the midway through the season, it's safe to say Ben Johnson ended up being the true culture guy out of Detroit and not Aaron Glenn? It really seems like Chicago has had a culture shift. I think there's one drastic difference between the two guys. Let's just say there's 70 plays on offense or defense throughout the game, right? Well, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson last year, both of them dictated the entire game. One guy called the offense, the other guy called the defense for the Lions. We'll transition to this year. Ben Johnson impacts the offense every single time they step on the field. And I think even when the games they've lost, any Bears fans can attest to this, wherever we fall on Caleb Williams, where he's at right now, Ben Johnson's play calling has been awesome. Even when plays don't work, you're like, damn, saw that one. Jesus. Ben Johnson's big time as a play caller. So whether you're like most offensive guys are not Sean McVay, are not Sean Payton. They can be pretty loud and pretty aggressive. Like Andy Reid's team meetings, he's not giving Newt Rockne speeches. It's not really Kyle Shanahan's deal. Right? Matt LaFleur, I think, tries to be like that. It's not really his thing. You think Kevin O'Connell is just like this is they're offensive guys. It doesn't mean they can't communicate and like give a good post-game speech, but their leadership starts in their impact where the offensive guys and obviously the defensive guys goes, God, this guy knows what he's fucking doing. So when you're the culture guy and you're not calling offense or defense and your team sucks, it's kind of hard, right? It's like, it's pretty easy to, I could direct SEAL Team 6. Like, hey, man, you guys go that way, and they'll just kick ass and take names. But you give me a couple guys that never held a weapon, never stood a post, we're probably getting lit up like a Christmas tree out on the front lines. So it's like you take over the Jets, and you're not calling the defense. How many rah-rah speeches can you give? And I'm pro, like, I understand the CEO, head coach, but, like, I just think can get away from you fast when you really, really suck, especially when you've never done it. Like Mike Vrabel, someone would be like, well, Vrabel's doing it in New England. Yeah, but he's done this now for a long time. He's been in that role in Tennessee. This was a big jump for both guys. The difference is Ben Johnson just has to add team speeches, but as a play caller, he's doing the same thing. He's just running the offense. And the defense, he hired a high-level guy to do that. Where the Jets is like, well, you're a defensive guy, but you're letting Steve Wilks do this. You mean Steve Wilks, the guy the 49ers fired after they lost the Super Bowl? Who, when you look through his resume, is a little iffy. By all accounts, Steve Wilks, nice guy. Not sure he'd be the guy I'd want as my defensive coordinator. Where Aaron Glenn, you were this great defensive coordinator last year. It's like if I hired Kelvin Shepard at LSU, I'd be like, Kelvin, I want you to be my head coach. I love your personality, former player. But I also want, if you're going to be the head coach at LSU, I want you to call plays too. And I get, Aaron Glenn wanted to be like the coach. It's like, bro, your point of difference, right? Like, for example, what I do. One thing we've figured out over the years is I could have on Tiger Woods or Patrick Mahomes. And it'd be cool. And it's good for brand. It's like, damn, Middlekauff landed Patrick Mahomes and Tiger Woods in a week on his podcast. It'd be cool. But you know what people really like? And where we do well and where we really shine is like the Colts traded for Sauce Gardner. What is your take? They don't want to hear other. They want to hear me. So, like, we've leaned into, like, my opinions. As Jim Rome once famously said, have an opinion, don't suck. So when things happen, I react. It's the business I'm in. It's been pretty lucrative. I'm happy to do it. But, like, we lean into what we're good at here. And I think sometimes these coordinators, they get away from it, and it's like, it's happened now with all these Jets guys. Brian Daboll has wavered back and forth. It's like, Brian, we hired you because you were sweet play caller at Alabama and then went with Josh Allen. And it's like, you call plays sometimes, you don't call plays. It's like, what are we doing? And I look around the league, the best teams, most of the time, I mean, the Eagles are a little bit of an outlier. But when you look at the AFC, the Chiefs, Andy Reid, play caller. The Broncos, play caller. Right? Sean McDermott calls the defense. So I just think it's not a tried and true. The Harbaugh brothers don't. But obviously the NFC is littered with that. Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator. Sean McVay, offensive coordinator. 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator. Minnesota, offensive coordinator. Green Bay, offensive coordinator. Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator. Like, all my blue chip guys. And listen, not everyone is a schematic genius. But, like, I saw Aaron Glenn last year win the division with basically me and you out there on the field for them. And under no circumstances in a game with the division on the line and the number one seed on the line should you ever be able to win a game against an elite offense with just, guys that have no business being on the field in a game for a 15-win team. And he did it. It was remarkable. Even Troy Aikman said this year, watching Kelvin Shepard, like, what he's doing with these players he's rolling is like one of the most... Troy Aikman, I think, said it was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Basically saying this is one of the best performances I've ever called as a broadcaster. because they have no business being this good on defense. And then all of a sudden you're just like, I'll just stop calling defense, give speeches. I'll, be like the dude in Miracle again, or be like Denzel and, you know, in one of the movies or Al Pacino. Like you start watching those things. Like what did Denzel say in Remember the Titans? What did Pacino say in Any Given Sunday? Because that's what your job becomes. A lot of leadership, which is cool and important. You know what I like? My coach to be a leader and call the plays. I Unless you're fucking Nick Saban or Bill Belichick, like I need you. I need you on a headset, dialing stuff up, especially when you're good at it. Especially when you're good at it. Like Jim Harbaugh, I get it. Probably couldn't do it. Never done it. Don't want him doing it. He's proven doesn't need to do it. He can figure it out. Aaron Glenn, Robert Saleh are two examples. Some of these defensive guys immediately pivot into the CEO. It's like, guys, I think you're actually making it harder on yourself. But like, he's not alone, so it's not like he's the only guy on an island doing this. But it definitely feels a little more defensive oriented. These guys just immediately become like the Jamie Dimon of their organization.